Welcome into another episode of Big East Energy Weekly. I'm your host, Casey Matthews. My normal co-host, Mark, is on a much-deserved vacation. I'm assuming he's on the beach right now in full UConn attire, probably even watching rerun of UConn national championships. You know, Mark, he's all about the UConn hoops and all about the Big East. And Mark, I know you're watching. I hope you're having a great time. Hey, listen, on today's episode, we're going to get right into it with Coach Huss. He's the next head coach in waiting for Creighton men's basketball. We're going to talk about what that means, how he handled it, and so much more with him. We're going to jump into Big East portal news. We got stuff going with St. John's. We got stuff going with Nova. Seton Hall seems to be losing everybody. And we still got my Jays that are very active in the portal as well. And then we're going to get into a little bit about the Big East and the future of the Big East, especially in regards to NIL, to rev share. Could there be advantages, disadvantages? We'll kind of break it all down for you. So let's go. All right. So listen, since our last episode, the news about Coach Alan Huss becoming the head coach in waiting at Creighton has broke. It was rumored for quite a while, but finally 100% done. He is back in Omaha, back with the Jays, and he will be the next head coach of the Creighton men's basketball whenever Coach Mack decides to retire. Now, as a Creighton fan, as a former Creighton staff member and a huge fan of Coach Mack, I hope that's not for years to come. But realistically, I don't see a head coach at a job like High Point, where that's a fantastic job, leaving that job to be an assistant coach for very long. My prediction, a year. Could it be two? Possibly. But I still would say I'm leaning towards a year. But again, I really hope it's longer than that. But what I want to get into really is how that situation broke down. There's a lot of rumors online for quite a while. Why would he consider doing this? Well, listen, went to school at Creighton, met his wife here, a lot of fond memories here, had some unbelievable times on the basketball staff. And he's Creighton through and through. And so when I heard that this was a possibility, I really honestly didn't believe it at first, just because I know how good of a job High Point actually is. And he was killing it there. First NCAA tournament appearance in the school's history. He won back-to-back Coach of the Years in the Big South. I mean, he had that thing cooking. So to walk away from that was just a little bit surprising. Now, when you look into see, okay, what's on the other side, it makes a little more sense. But what I want to get into, what I actually want to show with Coach Huss here, is how he handled the situation in regards to his staff at High Point. And the reason is this: as a basketball fan, if you're watching this, you're a Big East basketball fan, and you know, man, this business can get it can get a little bit shady. And there's good people in this business, but good things don't always happen to good people. Well, Coach Huss made sure that this was handled the right way, and that good things did happen to the good people that he had working for them. And so what I want to do is play a little clip for you from our episode that we filmed with Coach Huss, a little interview yesterday on the Roll Jays podcast, also hosted here on the Big East Energy Podcast Network. So if you're a Creighton fan, even if you're not, and you just want to hear about Creighton basketball, I'd encourage you to tune into the Roll Jays podcast. But I'm going to play a little clip from Coach Huss, really break down how he handled this situation, and why I think it's such a great deal what he did.
Yeah, that was the final sticking point in this deal was, on my staff there, I had 4 guys that had babies that are under a year old. I think 3 of them under 7 months old. And so one of them's Antoine Young, who, obviously former Blue Jay, but it's got a little baby girl. And, it's difficult when you start looking at these things, and potentially you have the chance to move. Typically the staff, it's great for everyone. But in this particular case, it didn't come with an opportunity for an entire staff to come with me. And it's difficult when you kind of lay the foundation brick by brick with someone. They're along with you for all the highs, the lows, and steady the course on many occasions when we could have deviated onto the wrong path. It's tough to think about leaving those guys behind. I think we're really fortunate. We had a pretty intentional plan with the way we set Flynn up to get that job. And I'm thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to have that thing continue rolling forward. And I know this, like, Flynn's really capable. He'll do a phenomenal job there, and those guys will continue to grow.
Listen, I've seen it plenty of times. Coaches get other jobs. They leave their staff behind. It doesn't work out well for those coaches. Alan Huss made sure that didn't happen to his staff at High Point. And I just want to commend him. And also, I hope this serves as an example to other coaches, across the country, across NCAA, that there's a right way to do things. And in my opinion, he did it the right way. Now, what does that mean going forward for Creighton basketball? I want to focus in on a key word that he said that to me is a little breadcrumb, unintentional, but it's still a breadcrumb and tells you a little about who he is. And he said, intentional plan. Let's go and look at some of the guys that Creighton have signed this offseason in the portal, right? When you really break it down, you see Josh Dix, when you see Owen Freeman with multiple years left of eligibility, you see Graves with multiple years left. You see the kid we just signed, which we'll get into in a minute, Austin Swartz, multiple years of eligibility left. They're still recruiting a couple guys. It's intentional to me that what's happening here is we're building a roster that can compete. Obviously, Coach Mack is not going to go just try to sacrifice this year at all. They're built to win today, and I believe Creighton's in great shape next year. But what is interesting is a lot of these guys have eligibility moving forward. What that means to Creighton fans and to the Big East is I don't see the Jays really slipping off. Now, Coach Mack's an unbelievable coach. I don't know the exact number, but I believe since Creighton joined the Big East, he's the second winningest coach in the league, behind only Jay Wright. So he's an unbelievable coach. So there is going to be a little bit of a changing of the guard there, and things will change. But Coach Huss referred to High Point as a Diet Creighton yesterday, and so I think you're going to see more of the same, more of that drop coverage defensively, a high-paced, fast offense that's fun to watch, a team that's disciplined, that doesn't foul. All of those things that kind of feed into the most important thing, which is winning. And I really believe that Creighton's in great shape moving forward, now that they're executing this intentional plan. Now, Creighton's not the only one in the league that's hitting the transfer portal hard and rebuilding a roster. And so we're going to jump into a little bit of St. John's, a little bit of Nova right after this little break here. All right, transfer portal news here. We got St. John's. As we know with Coach Pitino, man, he doesn't stop. And, the big news, obviously, a few weeks ago was R.J. Lewis entering the portal. I mean, I think some of us expected him to test the NBA waters, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But losing Jaden Glover, Kamon Maker, Brady Dunlap, Kadari, Davion Smith, there's a lot to replace there on that team, and they've done an unbelievable job. But here's the deal. We know why they didn't advance far in the NCAA tournament. It's because they weren't a very good shooting team and an offensive team. Unbelievable defensive team. And I think they'll still be a really good defensive team. But if you look at what they're doing in the transfer portal, they're bringing in shooters. Adding on Joe Son from Arizona State, shot 37% from three last year. We have Bryce Hopkins, who, Bryce isn't necessarily known as a great shooter, more of a scorer, a slasher, but he shot 40% from three last year, albeit in limited attempts. But 2 years ago when he was healthy, 36% from three. So he's dangerous from beyond the arc. And then the signing today of Sellers from Stanford, unbelievable shooter, 45% from three. Okay. So they have reloaded with shooters. The question now is who handles the rock? Who's the point guard? And that is what I'm interested to see of what they do, because, they have, they have Wilcher on their team still, which they could maybe slide him into some ball handling duties, but I don't really see that. They're recruiting, I don't even know how to pronounce his name 100%, but Caden Lewis, who decommitted from Kentucky. Like, he's a guy that I think could be in the mix for them, that could play that point guard spot. They were recruiting Xavier Lee from Princeton. They lost him to Florida. He could have been a guy that could have handled some ball handling duties. They're still on Ian Jackson and Dylan Mitchell. So those aren't point guard. Those would not be point guards, but just other pieces to add. So I think that the bottom line is the Johnnies went into the portal with a plan to get some shooting on that roster, and they've achieved and they have executed that plan. Now I think they need to fill that roster out a little bit, get their point guard, or figure out who's going to have the primary ball handler responsibilities. But this is shaping up to be another great St. John's team led by one of the best coaches that's ever lived, in Rick Pitino. And I'll be excited to see what he does. Now, turn the page a little bit to Villanova. Obviously, Kevin Willard coming in there. It was interesting, the timing there, obviously, with the whole Maryland fiasco, and Villanova was playing in the Crown tournament. So there's just a lot of different variables at play there in terms of their recruiting. They're losing Dixon. I mean, they lost everybody, right, from to graduation. So Poplar, who we losing, Longino, Brickus. I think that's all of them, that for graduation and eligibility expiring. But bringing in Zion Stanford from Temple was a really good signing for them. Malachi Palmer's following coach from Maryland, so they've got a couple guards there. The name that I'm interested in, I believe he's on campus right now at Villanova, is, I'm going to butcher this name. It's Alvaro Falguerius. Sorry if I got that wrong. Robert Morris transfer, kind of like a stretch 4-5 that can shoot the ball, some length. Would be an interesting piece. For sure, to add to Villanova. So, coach he's hitting the portal hard. He's doing a good job. I believe, the situation that he came into is difficult. But I have a lot of respect for Coach Willard, and I think he's going to do a good job at Villanova. But he's got to get that roster figured out, because this isn't a league that, especially with Coach Pitino, with Coach Hurley, Coach Mack in the league, like, and Coach Willard knows, like, this isn't a league you can just play around with. You've got to have solid players from the PG down to your 5-man that can go out and that can compete, that can play hard, that can be physical. This is a much more physical league than people give it credit for. And so I do believe that he's adding some important pieces to that, and we'll see where he goes from there. My Jays are still hitting it hard, man. With this latest edition of Austin Swartz, I really like that addition for them. I think his length, his athleticism, he was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school. Miami had the coaching change mid-season. Things just didn't work out for him. But late in the year, he really started to come on, really started to find his own. I'm interested to see him because, if we remember the transfer last year from Arizona State, Jemiah Neal, who I was hard on early on and really was questioning how he would fit into the offense. And all credit goes to that coaching staff and to Jemiah for figuring that out. Jemiah really bought in and became an unbelievable player for them, especially late. And I think this could be a similar situation here where it's a nice piece. It's coming to a different type of roster construction, different type of play. But he's going to come play for a coach and come play in a program that's really steady, that's won a lot of games, and that knows how to get the most out of their players. And I think that is that's one of the things about Coach Mack that I don't think he gets enough credit for. Is he really does get the most out of each and every one of his players, and I think the same will be said from Swartz. But let me tell you guys something else too, and this isn't necessarily portal related, but it's kind of just we don't talk about it, and I don't talk about it enough. Is Hudson Greer? Hudson Greer is a true freshman. Will be a true freshman coming out of Montverde. Kid can flat out play, athletic, can shoot it, can guard. I mean, I'm very excited to see him, and I think he's going to get a role on this. I think he's going to earn a role on this team, and so I'm excited to kind of see how that shakes out as well for the Jays. Seton Hall, unfortunately, I just read today they've unfortunately lost all 8 of the transfers they brought in last year. Some to graduation, but that's a tough deal in this NIL world, man. It's hard. I don't know how well funded they are with their NIL, and that's difficult to do. That's I don't know where you put the blame there. I think Coach Holloway is a very good coach. He gets his team to play hard. Going in last year, they struggled. The record wasn't great, but when you saw them on the court, man, they played hard. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to get a team that's not winning to continue to give you their all. And he does an excellent job, of getting the most, I think, effort out of his players. And so I'll be interested to see what they're able to add there in the transfer portal, because at this point, most of the big name guys are off the board, and I don't know if they're ever going to go after those big names, those multi-million-dollar NIL deals. I just don't know if they have the funding for it. But I know this much: they're not recruiting guys that don't play hard. They're not recruiting guys that don't guard. And so we'll see what they're able to kind of put together in this transfer portal. We don't have enough time really to go into all the other teams, but DePaul's signing guys. You got Xavier and Coach Richard Pitino down at Xavier that's crushing it in the portal. So obviously Mark's not here, so I'm not spending a lot of time on UConn because we get enough UConn, we get enough Creighton talk so far on the Big East Energy Weekly show. So next time he's got a solo show, I'm sure he'll equal my minutes on UConn that I've spent on Creighton so far. So let's turn the page a little bit to the future of the Big East in regards to NIL and in regards to rev share, things of that nature on the other side of this break. All right. The Big East. It's what we love. It's what we're here for. And listen, I'm excited about where the Big East is right now. I love the coaches that are in this league. I love the fact that we shouldn't have as much money tied up in football that the SEC and the Big Ten, the Big 12 all have. So I'm really excited to see, how that translates for the Big East and the quality, especially in the portal, the quality of player that the Big East teams can get. I will also say this, though. It won't always be this way. And so I do think we need to take advantage over this next couple of years and make sure that we're positioning the league appropriately, because like you're going to see here in a second, I really do believe it's going to change. It's another topic that we talked about with Coach Huss on the Roll Jays podcast yesterday. And I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from that. It's just another minute clip here where he sort of talks about this. And let me tell you this personally. I have personal experience with this, with working with Coach Huss. When the NIL stuff really first started, this is a guy that dove in. He figured it out. He talked a little bit about that on the show. There is nobody that I trust more than Alan Huss when it comes to NIL and rev share and understanding the intricacies of it all and how it applies to Creighton, but also how it applies to the Big East as a whole. So I would highly encourage you listen and pay attention to what he's talking about here.
the Big East stuff, I think you're onto something. I think there's a slight advantage in some ways. There's also a major disadvantage. If you can come up with the finances, actually getting it to the players, and you have a little bit of an advantage there. The challenge is, just if you just look at the numbers of it, this deal is growing. It's 22.7 million right now, and it's growing by 4% annually. In addition to that, there's a look-in period every 24 months, and the only people that are looking in are the SEC and the Big Ten. Maybe the Big 12's peering around the corner, but those two are looking around, and they're going to keep making those numbers go up. And so it's going to be a challenge for people outside of those two leagues that don't have the massive media rights contracts to keep up. And we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to get outside the box, and I'll certainly spend a little bit of my time here, or maybe a great deal of it, trying to make sure that we come up with creative solutions to those problems.
Listen, I think he absolutely nailed it. If you don't have those huge TV contracts like the SEC and the Big Ten have, we could be at a disadvantage. I'm not prepared to go into great detail on what I think could be done. And if Coach Huss is watching this, he'd laugh at me anyways. But I will say this: when you hear talk about the league expanding, when you hear talk about adding other teams to this league, I wouldn't roll your eyes and say it'll never happen. I think there's a day coming where this league will grow, and probably has to grow in order to create a bigger TV contract, and more in league games. Okay. I also think what he said is really important too, in terms of what he said is, if you can come up with the money and get it to your players. We talked a couple weeks ago about the House settlement and how once that thing shakes out, as of what we believe is going to happen, any money that's coming out of the collective is going to have to be fair market value, and it's going to be evaluated by the NCAA. So if you have a ton of money in your collective, now you've got to figure out creative ways to get it to your players. If you are in a football league and you are in, just say, a Tuscaloosa, where football is obviously king there, but they also have a great basketball team, you're fighting for some of those ads and for some of the deals, the NIL deals that maybe basketball players could get, but because football is such a big deal there, the football players will be more prone to get them. So when you're in a place, say Cincinnati and Xavier, and with them not having a football program that they're fighting with for NIL, they could be in a position now to where they're better suited for NIL than a team that's in a huge football market. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that, and that's why I think what Coach Huss is saying there is the SEC and the Big Ten, they'll figure that out. They'll figure out how to work the system a little bit and change the system to benefit them. But until that's done, I believe the Big East is in great shape, and we got to keep rolling, because eventually that will come to an end. Hey, listen, this was my first shot at doing a solo show, so if you've made it this far with me, thank you. I'm still learning this whole solo show thing, trying to get better at it. I really appreciate it. This whole idea of the Big East Energy Podcast Network, such a cool deal. I'm a huge Big East basketball fan. Obviously, I'm a J, but I love the Big East, and I want the league to be dominant. And this whole idea of this podcast network, man, it's growing fast. We've already got over 5,000 subscribers. We're going to add more podcasts that cover other teams. This is a passion project. This is something that Mark and I are trying to build together, and something that we love doing. But I just want to say thank you for the support so far. We've got a lot of comments coming in from people that are watching the shows, and it means a lot to us. I'd also like to say, if you have topics, if you have questions that you'd like us to cover or go into, people to interview, all those sorts of ideas, share them with us, whether it be X or YouTube or, whatever. Get us those ideas because we want them. We'll use them. We want to do whatever we can to make this your one-stop shop for Big East basketball talk. So thank you so much for all the support. So that's it for me. Mark will be back for the next show. So if this wasn't your cup of tea, but you love Mark, that's great. He'll be back on the next one. You'll still got to put up with me a little bit, but he does a phenomenal job, and I'm excited to have him back. So, all right, till next time.